Thank you for listening to The Luminous Mind. Remember to subscribe to our free podcast so you won't miss any of our illuminating content. Here is episode 168.
I learned that sometimes out of the deepest and darkest experiences that we have come the resourcefulness that we need in order to create the life that we truly want.
Benjamin Franklin once said, "Do not curse the darkness, rather light a candle instead." If you're ready to set your mind on fire, then prepare yourself for the Luminous Mind with your host, Rebecca Bowman.
Today's fire starter is Stephen Michael Miller. Stephen is passionate about helping entrepreneurs, business owners, families, associations, organizations, and youth to live better, more productive lives. He teaches key principles and skills that will help you achieve more. Stephen is a nationally known expert, speaker, and entertainer. As a national speaker, Stephen has shared the stage with Dan Clark, Les Brown, Craig DeSwalt, Marshall Silver, and other world authorities in the field of personal and professional development. He has also been featured in Real Estate Solution magazines and is a key contributor to the book, The Straight Path to Real Estate Wealth. Stephen hosts the international weekly Strongbrook radio show where he has interviewed some of the world's greatest thought leaders. Stephen's proven ability to creatively help people achieve greater results, both personally and professionally, has revolutionized the businesses and lives of professionals and families around the world. Welcome, Stephen.
Hey, thank you so much. Great to be here.
I'm super excited to hear about your work with mentoring and your radio and different stuff like that. But before we get into any of that, please tell our audience a little bit more about yourself.
I really appreciate that, Rebecca. So just like everybody else, I'm sure, I've got a past, and my past is pretty colorful. I love my past because it's from my past that I've learned so much. I grew up in St. Petersburg, Florida. And if you know where that is, it's just right on the West Coast, right near Tampa, right there on the Gulf of Mexico. And from my doorstep, from where I grew up, I could point out 3 crack houses. And I don't want to paint a wrong picture or a false picture, but I mean, it wasn't the best of neighborhoods. And like literally, I remember one day a kid came up to my door and said, "Hey, we were talking about something." I can't remember exactly what it was. But I asked him, I said, "What does your dad do for work?" And this is probably when I was 8 or 9 years old. And I said, "What does your dad do for work?" Because I noticed that cars would drive up to the home, they'd go inside, and about 5 or 10 minutes later, come back outside with a brown paper bag and leave. So I said, "What does your dad do for work?" And he said, "Oh, well, my dad sells powdered milk." And I, probably not. But anyway, that was the neighborhood that I grew up in. Needless to say, growing up in poverty like that, it teaches you a lot about scarcity. And unfortunately, not a whole lot about this idea of abundance and prosperity. And I just remember watching and looking at people around me and wondering why in the world had we not figured it out financially. I had 2 amazing parents. They were wonderful in that they told me every day that they loved me, that I could do anything. But I also watched them. I did what most kids do, right? I observed. And I would see that although they were telling me that I could do anything, they weren't doing anything. They weren't doing what they really wanted. And so it was interesting for me as I grew up. I had this kind of strange dichotomy in my mind of the one side being told I could do anything and the other side observing that most people don't, but always wondering or always feeling like I could do more, always feeling like I wasn't meant to just be subject to be a victim of my circumstance. And so from a very young age, I started looking around, I started learning, and I made friends with some great people. And eventually, to fast forward, to make a long story very short, I was able to start a company and help form a company called Strongbrook. We've done a lot of things in the realm of real estate and financial well-being for people. And more recently, we've began a different part of that company called Limitless, where it's all about personal development and helping people grow. And it's been a tremendous blessing. It's been so wonderful to be able to take the experiences that I had as a child, and now be able to teach and to help people learn that they don't have to be stuck just because they're there now. Just because they're experiencing something right now doesn't mean they have to stay there, that they truly can take steps and very real steps towards creating the life that they want.
Well, and I love that word journey. I think you're kind of telling us that journey, I guess. And it really does help us, lead us to discover what we love to do. Taking that stuff that you were learning as a child from just observing your parents, tell us how that journey kind of changed to incorporate this more positive mindset of abundance and limitless. Tell us a little bit more how your mission was formed.
There's actually a specific story I'd like to tell you. And this is when I was about 9 years old. When I was 9 years old, I wanted nothing more than to build a treehouse. And I don't know how many of the listeners here, of your listeners, were in the same boat that I was, but this was for me a big dream. For me, this was like the biggest dream that I could have possibly had. I wanted this treehouse more than anything. But because of my upbringing, because of how I was raised, and because of our financial situation, I knew that I couldn't go to my parents. I couldn't ask them for money and for wood because we just didn't have it. I mean, let me describe real quick what poor meant for me, because I know everyone has a different definition. For me, poor meant that I didn't go on field trips that normally cost, the $4 or $5 because we just didn't have it. I would often stay home from those field trips, not always, but often, because we just didn't have the money to go. Poor for me meant that I was on welfare, either church or state welfare, for the majority of my childhood. And, for anyone that's experienced that, it's not fun. It's not something you go bragging about. But maybe even worse for me, poor meant that when I was about 7 or 8 years old, my father took me for the first time to learn the family trade. And I say that kind of in jest a little bit, but it was dumpster diving. I learned that the vast majority, or a lot of our food, if it wasn't from the state or from what other welfare means, it was found in dumpsters. My father became really good at identifying which grocery stores got rid of their food when, and he would go in there and take what was good. I mean, again, I don't want to paint a false picture. I wasn't eating rotten food, but we were taking the expired food that stores would throw out. Oftentimes it would be, things that would open up and you'd have to take it out and wash it off, and we would freeze what was good and get rid of what was bad. So many a meal came by means of dumpsters. And it was crazy for me because that background, I mean, here I was 9 years old wanting this tree house. And I remember we had this massive oak tree in my backyard, and I would walk around this oak tree over and over and over again, envisioning, like truly imagining this treehouse. And I would think of it over and over and over again, until one day I decided I wanted to tell the people that I love most about my dream. And I think that's probably natural for most of us. If we have this big desire, this big ambition, we want to share it with people that we love. And I knew that I couldn't go to my parents and ask them for anything. So I did what I thought was the next best thing. I went to my siblings and I said, "Hey guys, I want to share this with you." And I told them about my dream and my vision. I wanted to build my treehouse. And they kind of looked at me and, they weren't very nice. I'll just say it that way. And I love my siblings. They're wonderful people. They were kids too. Coming from the background that we came from, they didn't just say, "Hey, Stephen, that's not a good idea." They basically kind of called me dumb and called me stupid and said, "That's impossible. You can't do that. There's no way." And something inside of me told me different. Something inside of me kind of lit on fire, and I wanted to prove them wrong. But probably more importantly, I wanted to prove myself right. I wanted to prove to myself that I could have this thing that I wanted. That was really, really important for me. And as trivial as it may seem, or it may even seem to other people, for me, that was everything. I mean, that's what I wanted. So anyway, I kind of left that scenario. I left my siblings. I went back outside, kept on thinking and dreaming, and this thought came to my mind. "Stephen, you're no stranger to dumpster diving. Why don't you just get resourceful?" Right? I didn't have what it took. I didn't have the money to go out and buy the things I needed, but I had experience. And this was a huge lesson for me. I learned that sometimes out of the deepest and darkest experiences that we have come the resourcefulness that we need in order to create the life that we truly want, in order to improve that journey for us, or get on different steps of that journey. And so for me, when that thought came, it was like, "Oh, no duh, of course, yeah." And I lived on these blocks that were separated by dirt roads. And along these dirt roads, they had these massive garbage cans. And, here where I live right now in Utah. And here in Utah, I have a personal garbage, dumpster that services just my home. But back in where I lived in St. Petersburg, these dumpsters were much larger, and they would service, 2, 3, or 4 homes. And so I started walking up and down these dirt alleyways that separated these blocks that we lived on, looking on the outside or inside these dumpsters for materials. And I remember one day I found an old solid wood door that I took, and I started piling wood up beside this old detached, dilapidated garage that we had. And I started piling wood up. I found this old door, like I said. I found an old waterbed. And I don't know, Rebecca, did you ever have a waterbed growing up? Or
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So
My parents did, for sure.
That's right. And if you remember the waterbeds, they were mostly particle board underneath, but the surround was like pressure treated 2x10s. This was like really good wood for a treehouse, So I'm collecting all this wood and I'm doing my thing. And I get to the point where I had enough wood, but I still didn't have any nails or screws or anything to attach it to the tree to secure it. So I'm going back to my mode of operation at the time. I start surrounding my tree and walking around it and thinking, what can I do? What can I do? What can I do? And the thought comes to me, well, go inside that old dilapidated garage and maybe you can find something to start with. Maybe you can find some nails or some screws or something that you can kind of get started with. So I went inside my house. I grabbed a broom and a dustpan. And when I say dilapidated garage, this is St. Petersburg, Florida. Tampa, Florida is like the rain capital or lightning capital of the world. I mean, we get rain constantly. And this garage had holes in the roof and some of the windows were broken out. So the once cement floor had kind of turned to dirt, right? And so it had been neglected. And although we had some things in it, but everything was kind of just messy and thrown in, where the leaks weren't. And so I went and grabbed this broom and dustpan and I started getting to work, like started cleaning up and organizing and trying to find anything that I could use. And by the time I was done, I had a small handful of nails and screws. I can imagine, I don't remember ever seeing them, but I can imagine my parents probably peeking out the back door window, wondering to themselves, what in the world is this 9-year-old boy doing? And just keep letting him go. Like he's cleaning up the garage, let him do whatever he's doing.
He's entertaining himself, right?
He's entertaining himself. He's not hurting anybody else, but he is cleaning up the garage. So that's a good thing. So anyway, I got this little supply of nails and screws, and I start my treehouse. I make some steps so I can climb up into the tree. I start hoisting wood up. I even found an old garden hose that had kind of deteriorated a bit. And I used that to tie up to some of the larger pieces of wood to hoist up into my tree. And I'm on fire. Like I'm just loving life. And every morning, as I'm an early riser naturally. And so I would get up as early as, before the sun got up. I would get out there. I'd start working on my treehouse as quiet as I could. And, and finally and I work all hours, all into the night. I loved what I was doing here. And I got to the point where I had used all of my screws and nails and my treehouse wasn't finished. I had a lot of wood left over and my vision definitely hadn't come full circle yet. It wasn't complete. And I'm up in my treehouse one day and I hear a voice from the back of my home. It was my mother. She had called me down to come to her. So I scurried down my treehouse and went to where my mom was, and she had her hand behind her back. And she leaned over to me and said, Stephen, I've got a surprise for you, but it's a secret. You can't tell your siblings. Now, Rebecca, I don't know if you're like me, but when mom said that she had a surprise and it's a secret and I can't tell my siblings, it's good. Right?
Yeah.
Something good's about to happen. So I get excited and I promised my mom, I won't tell anybody. This is between you and I. And she pulls her hand out from behind her back, and in it she has this brown paper bag. And she unfolds kind of the bag a little bit and opens it up, and I look inside, and inside this brown paper bag was a brand new box of 16 penny nails. Now, if you know anything about construction, wow. 16 penny nails were like the 3.5-inch galvanized, beautiful, perfect for a tree house. And I threw my arms around my mom's neck, gave her a huge hug and kiss, grabbed that bag and went to work. And I will tell you, I completed my tree house. And it was probably the ugliest thing that you've ever seen. But it was also the most beautiful thing that I had ever seen. And it was my dream. And it truly did have, 3 or 4 different levels. And, some of those levels were just like a perch here, but it was amazing. And I would spend so much time up in this treehouse. I would also, it was also strong enough for adults to come up. I had several adults come up and test it out. And I was this proud 9-year-old boy. The neatest part about this story for me in my journey is this experience as a kid has taught me some things. Because later on in life, I was a kid who I didn't enjoy reading. I could read. I was taught at a young age how to, but I just didn't enjoy it. I never developed that love for reading. But when I turned about 18 years old, I think it was, I picked up a book for the first time, this particular book, I should say, for the first time. I had picked up other books. But I picked up a book that I was introduced to for the first time. And that book for me was Think and Grow Rich. I read that book 2.5 times through.
Wow.
Which was so
at 18, that's pretty.
At 18 years old, it was so odd for me because I truly didn't read. I mean, I was that kid who got the assignment for the book report, waited until the night before, finally went out and got the Cliff Notes and maybe the book. I'd read a couple paragraphs and bluff my way through it, right? I couldn't stand sitting there and reading for long spaces of time. Well, that book caught me. And when I read the book, it confirmed to me what I had believed my entire life as a kid, but just didn't know how to put it into words and didn't know how to express it and didn't feel or find the support from very many. I mean, my parents were always there to support me, but there were not really many around me that could really point me in the right direction. And it opened my mind and opened my heart in such a way that I had never experienced before. It just confirmed so much. And it was just this massive, head explosion type of thing for me. It really actually helped to connect some dots. Because with my experience from when I was 9 years old, I learned a few things. And one of the biggest lessons that I learned from that experience was that, number one, I can create whatever I want. Regardless of my current circumstance, regardless of where I am right now, regardless of what trial I'm facing or how much everyone around me is telling me that I can't, if I will persist, and Napoleon Hill talks about this, if I will persist with this unwavering desire, if I will be unyielding in that desire, and if I'll just get after it, then I can truly accomplish it. And even when I don't have the resources, my experiences or the experiences of those around me will gather together, will combine to help and aid me in my goal as long as I'm unwavering. That was a huge lesson. The second lesson that I learned from this experience was that I get in my own way. And now this was an interesting thing. I didn't learn this lesson until much later on in life, but I learned that I have truly limiting beliefs that were self-imposed that wasn't necessarily truth. And let me dive into that for just a second. My mother, I believed that I couldn't go to my parents and ask them for help. Well, in the end, who helped me?
Yeah, your mom.
It was my mom. And I never went to them and told them. I never had a conversation with my mom or my dad and said, hey, I really need this, that, and the other, or I'm not done with my project, or man, I really could use some help. I never did that. But when I got to the end of the road, the reality was that I had held myself back. I had utilized this belief of mine based on all of the evidences of my past, which, by the way, this is what we do, right? We take all of the evidences from our past and we act as though that is the truth of who we are today. Well, today is different from yesterday. And today, if I can get out of my own way, I can do things faster, and I can accept mentorship, and I can be humble, but I can move after my goal with tenacity, looking beyond just what I've done in the past, looking to today, looking at choice as a real viable option as how I can now create my today and my future. And I mean, that realization for me has been one of the greatest blessings of my life. I believe that realization and the growth inside of that realization has gotten me to where I am today, has helped me to be able to speak and share the messages that I do in so many different forms and fashions. And I think that answered the question.
Yeah. Yeah. I think we saw a glimpse of like the inspiration that you had about kind of envisioning what you wanted and going after it as a young boy and how that's helped shape your thinking. But what do you feel like your overall paradigm change has been with time and experience? A lot of time has passed since you're 18 and you read the book of Think and Grow Rich, but what has been the overall paradigm change?
Well, it's this idea, and I know for a lot of people, this idea may still be foreign. And I also, before I say it, it's more than just the cliche that it may even sound like. And so I hope to convey it appropriately, but it's really this concept that you do have power over your life and your circumstances, and you have the power of choice. And choice is not to be taken lightly. I mean, it is such a powerful concept that if we truly grasp this idea, that regardless of where we are now, that we can create something different, that no matter what it is that we're experiencing. And just to go through a quick list, I mean, you can be experiencing divorce and still choose happiness. You can be experiencing death in your family and still experience joy and, elation even. I mean, you can be going through certain things in life, and, someone could come up to me right now and decide that they wanted to just lay into me with their fists. They could just start beating and pummeling me. But I, even in that moment, have a choice where I can show up in a way that will be powerful for me and that will get me closer to my goal rather than further away. There's something, I was sitting in my bed several months ago, and I'm talking with my wife about several different things and about life and about choice. And I've been contemplating these concepts for years now. And I was talking with her, and all of a sudden I had this thought enter my mind. And this thought really came along with this little kind of phrase that for me has been crucial, because oftentimes in life, when we're not going after what we want, it's because of some sort of fear. Usually those fears stem from an experience from the past where we make a decision about ourselves and about our surroundings. We decide and create a belief, or we form a belief around something here. And that belief is typically rooted in some sort of fear because we don't want to experience that bad experience again. And this thought came to my mind. Well, what is the difference between faith and fear? And a lot of people talk about this whole, these two sides of the coin sort of, right? You've got faith. Well, faith means you're moving towards what you want. You've never achieved it before, so it's new and it's different. But you have the faith that you can. You have this belief that you can achieve it. And the fear, and we've heard about fear, false evidences appearing real, and that's one thing that people use. But this one phrase went through my mind that has made so much sense, which is, fear is actually not opposite of faith. It's actually a very close cousin. If faith is doing things that you want or putting actions towards things that you want, then fear for me is putting faith in what you don't want. And that realization for me has been massive, because I have a choice in any given moment. With everything that I do, I can either put faith in what I do want, or I can put faith in what I don't want. But in that conversation, I've recognized that I'm powerful because I'm creating my life. Right now, if my life isn't exactly where I want it to be, but I can recognize that I've created it that way and I'm no longer a victim in my circumstances, then all of a sudden I have the power to change it. If I can recognize that my life as it is right now is a direct result of my actions, my words, my thoughts, and how I've reacted to circumstances that have come into my life, because I'm not one of those people that believe that I have created everything that happens. Again, I think that someone could come up to me and just punch me in the face and I didn't necessarily have anything to do with that. Or I can get in a car accident and I didn't necessarily have anything to do with that. But what I do have control over in that moment and in that instance is how I show up. And how I show up is going to have a direct correlation to what I create and what happens in my life. And so again, rather than showing up as a victim in any circumstance and just accepting life as it's dished out to me, I can recognize that I've created the life that I have, which means I can now create the life that I want.
Wow. You've said so much that's just, my mind is just spinning, because I think I have felt that fear and faith are two sides of a coin, but really I do agree. Like so many times, like we just react like, okay, I guess I got to do this, even though I don't want to, but it comes from a place of that fear, but you're allowing that fear to guide those actions versus going, no, I want this type of life and I'm going in this direction, regardless of, I may not have all the resources or whatever, but that's the direction I'm choosing to go. That's very inspiring. So,
well, I appreciate that. Can I just add one more thing on that?
Sure.
Because if you look at it, if you look at your life, we can all look into our past and we can view it, and it's there, and sometimes it's right in front of our face. And oftentimes we choose to step back into our past over and over and over again, usually more into the bad experiences or the failures than the good. But it's interesting because once our past is done, it's in the past. And honestly, our past cannot determine our future. Our past can't even determine our present. The only thing that can is the choice that we make right now in the present. Well, equally, we have a choice if we're looking to create a future that is better. And there's a quote that I read once, and I don't know who the author was. I think it's an unknown author, which is, different isn't always better, but better will always be different. And when I think about that, it's so true. I can do something different right now. I could run full speed ahead into a wall in front of me and, ram my head into it. That would be different. It absolutely though wouldn't be better, I don't think anyway, but I could choose that. But the reality is if I'm going to look to improve though, if I want to do something better, it will always mean that I'm doing something different than I was doing before. So better is always going to be different. That means I have to be willing to accept that my life as it is and all my circumstances, if I want to improve them, I have to be willing to invite new things into my life.
Wow.
And one of my friends told me a while back, he said, if you've been doing the wrong thing for 40 years, sometimes doing the right thing can feel wrong at first. And that's true. I mean, it's kind of like lifting weights. If you've never lifted weights and you start to lift weights, which is going to grow your muscles will literally tear, and you'll experience pain.
It'll hurt. Yeah.
It will hurt. But in the growth process, when that grows back, you become stronger. And so if you think about it, our future is undetermined. I mean, unless you've got tarot cards and a crystal ball, Rebecca, which I don't think you do, but if you do, let me know, please. But unless anybody and any of our listeners feel like they have open eyes into the future, the truth is it's blocked off. So I just want to ask this question. Are the words that you're speaking, are the actions that you're taking, are the thoughts that you have, are they putting faith in what you do want, or are they putting faith in what you don't want? Because either way, you're going to get what you put your faith into. I mean, this is a universal principle. You are going to receive whatever you put your faith into. So if you are experiencing something that's uncomfortable right now, you even have a choice as to whether or not you want to feel that that's uncomfortable. Or, I mean, for me, and I know I'm rambling right now, and I'm sorry. I get so passionate about this. I remember when I was 15 years old, when I was 12 actually, I got really into working out. By the time I was 15, I was working out with the seniors in my high school. I grew really fast, and my muscles did too. But I got to this point where I loved to bench press. It was one of my favorite exercises. And I would tear my chest up, and I would walk out of the gym like touching with my two fingers my chest muscles, and it hurt so bad. But I got to the point where I loved that feeling.
Yeah, it's kind of addicting.
because I knew what it meant. I knew that it meant I was growing. Well, the reality is when we're going through these trials, whatever they are, we can get to the point, honestly, where inside of the trial, not after we're already done with it, but even inside the trial, we begin to look at it differently. We begin to not only accept it, but to look for the beauty of it. We begin to, my good friend Kevin Clayson, who wrote the book Flip the Gratitude Switch, talks about this a lot, is in the trial, you find what's awesome. You find the good part about it, and you focus on that part. Well, you get to the point, if you will accept this as truth, where you begin to look inside of your trials while you're still in the trial for the beautiful. You start to look for the learning experience. And when you do that, you have power beyond your comprehension at this point right now that truly is the foundation. It's the fundamental of creating everything that you want.
Wow, that's great. I love the idea too, like a change is painful, and we want to avoid the pain. And so we don't even go for the change, but change can also be wonderful, just like growing your muscles. Yeah, it's super painful, but at the same time, it's so much better. It's wonderful to go that direction versus, back to the less painful parts of our lives. Do you want to go ahead and tell us a little bit more about maybe the inspiration behind Limitless? I mean, we talked about some of your real estate things in your bio and different things like that, but I think we wanted to focus more on, what you're doing with Limitless and how you're really helping people, have more power in their own lives.
Absolutely. Really appreciate it, Rebecca. And I think just to get a firm understanding of how we even came up with it, I'm just going to go through a real quick timeline. So about 10 years ago, we started a company. And this company, Strongbrook, for all intents and purposes, was mainly about doing real estate. But it was interesting because as we would sit down with people and we would start doing the real estate with them, almost without fail, we would experience some form of resistance. There would be some trepidation, some fear would show up. And usually it was because these individuals had experienced some sort of financial loss in their life that they didn't want to repeat. And it was kind of a neat growth process for us because as we would meet with these clients and as we would go through and be doing this real estate coaching for all intents and purposes, what we were supposed to be doing anyway was real estate coaching. A lot of it turned into life coaching and helping people to overcome their limiting beliefs. and move past that trepidation or those fears. And so Limitless has been a really natural transition for us because we realize that almost everybody, if not everybody in the world, has experienced something really horrible in their life for them, right? And again, I shy away nowadays from even using words like horrible, but they've experienced something that for them was difficult, and they formed a belief around it. And for us, our realization was if we can go and help somebody at the deepest part of their soul. If we can really dive in and uncover what is holding them back, it's not just what's holding them back financially. Typically, whatever that limiting belief is or that core root belief is, it's what's holding them back in every other aspect of their life as well. And we recognize that if it was showing up for them financially, that same limiting belief would typically show up for them in their marriage or in their relationship. It would show up for them in their physical health. It would show up for them in their personal power, and so on and so forth, even in their spiritual lives. And so Limitless really came about as an evolution of a lot of what we were already doing. It came about as a way to help people to truly get outside of themselves for a minute, maybe uncover some of those blind spots, receive the mentorship that most people, they're too blind even to it, right? They don't even see it. And so they don't even know that they need it until they get to this breaking point where they realize they have to do something. And so Limitless came about as an opportunity to let the average person experience massive breakthrough. Our events are amazing 3-day events that we put on. And it's interesting because I've had a lot of people come up to me since we've started this part of our company, and not everybody is into personal development, and I get it. But I will tell you that the more and more people that I meet, the most successful people that I know are people that are seriously into personal development. They're into that idea of constant change and growth and overcoming those limiting beliefs. And that's what they're into because they've recognized that wealth doesn't come from the next system. It doesn't come from the next program. Wealth comes from within. And the more that people are willing to work on themselves, the more wealth they attract. And when I say wealth, I don't mean just financial wealth. I mean greater relationships. I mean, better health. I mean, all these things. That all has to do with improving that wealthy mindset. And so Limitless, I've had people come up to me and say, Stephen, can 3 days really change my life? And my answer is an unequivocal absolutely, if you want it to. If you truly are there to do something about it. If you're ready for that change, if you're ready for that transformation. And it's been an amazing journey to watch how people will come to Limitless with a variety of different problems or issues that they're wanting to face or limiting beliefs that they'd like to finally look at square in the eye, and they leave changed. They leave transformed. And the wonderful part about it is they're given tools and they're given things that they can take home and do. For us, we're not necessarily trying to say that, hey, or we're not trying to keep everyone dependent. we very much believe on, hey, learn what you can here, and then once you've got what's good for you, move on if it's right for you, or if our movement is right for you too, then help us grow it. We're okay with that too. But it's been a tremendous thing to watch individual after individual after individual come through and experience just true transformation and growth. And then a lot of them, not everybody, but a lot of people then say, wow, this is something that has been so pivotal for me. I want to share it with other people. And so that's how we grow. It's word of mouth, and people share it with others. And it's been pretty tremendous.
Before we go on, let's listen to this message.
Imagine how relaxed you'll be lounging in a hammock from the Teton Hammock Company. The folks at the Teton Hammock Company create the best hammock camping gear on the planet. Not only do they use their hammocks during the lazy days of summer, but they have engineered and tested their gear in the harshest of conditions so you can be comfortable in any kind of weather. All of their gear comes with a limited lifetime warranty and are made of the highest quality nylon and polyester ripstop fabrics, and their quilts are stuffed with industry standard water-resistant down for the most comfortable night's sleep you've had in years. If you're like me and sleeping on the ground sounds like something for barbarians, then head over to www.tetonhammocks.com and hang with the best. At checkout, use the code LUMINOUS10 for an additional 10% off your order. Happy hanging!
to the Luminous Mind with Stephen Michael Miller, who's helping people become limitless. I love the idea of wanting to help people with personal development because in a lot of ways, what else are we here for? I mean, we can accumulate all the wealth that we want. We can, I don't know, there's a variety of things that we can do with our time. But if we're not, I just think the greatest life satisfaction you're going to have is knowing that you're different today than you were, yesterday or 5 years ago, or, that you're making that headway. Let's talk about maybe more success that you've seen in this area of mentoring other people. Is there any stories that you can tell us from that maybe have been pretty transformational?
Yeah, I mean, there's been some tremendous things, and I'm going to avoid saying names right now just because I haven't necessarily gotten their permission or not, But I mean, we've had one individual who came in, and he's got a wonderful family, and he not always provided decently for him, but they had a lot of goals that they wanted to accomplish, and he had only made a small 6-figure type of income, and again, and I don't put that down as great income, but he had a lot more that he wanted to do. He came in and received mentorship from our company and what we do and some of the higher level programs that we provide. And this year he's broken $1 million of income, which is amazing. And I don't want to say that everyone does that. They don't all do that, but that was his goal. And he's done that. I mean, I've seen multiple people come through and start shedding weight and pounds that they've been holding on to forever because, again, our physical bodies are typically a representation of our beliefs. And I know that there's a lot of people out there, even some possibly listening to this podcast, that may think, you know what, I've got a thyroid problem or I've got this. And I understand that there are some extenuating circumstances, but for the most part, it's you want the very best weight loss program of all time. Love yourself, learn where you're not loving yourself and start loving yourself there too. And then you'll stop turning to the foods and the candies and the whatever else. And, whatever your vice is, we all have them. I love ice cream and I probably eat way too much ice cream. But the truth is once you become clear on who you really are and you start to follow, intuition and you start to really care about yourself and you open up the dialogue with yourself and you start to dive in and get to know yourself better and better and better, you start to realize that those things were just crutches. And oftentimes those things were crutches that you didn't even mean to do, but you were taught from a very young age. I mean, think about it. How many of us, when our child starts crying or screaming, we offer him an ice cream cone or her a lollipop to soothe them? Yeah. So is it any wonder that as we're adults now, if we have a bad day, we turn to food to soothe ourselves instead of learning how to appropriately respond to it? So I've seen that happen. I mean, I've seen marriages. I've seen multiple marriages, actually. People come to me and say, Stephen, your program has literally saved my marriage. One of my really good friends now who's been part of some of our higher level programs, and I won't say her name, but she has told me that because of our program, her marriage was saved twice. And that's the kind of results. I mean, it's hard to quantify some of these things, but I'm hearing it comes back to me constantly. It's amazing to watch those things happen for people. Yeah,
I think sometimes we just recreate all of the life that was for us. I mean, for you to have gotten out of poverty is almost, you hear of generational, of government dependence and stuff like that. It's really difficult for you to actually change that mindset and make a shift to something better. So, and it sounds like, give us an idea of like the services. You talk about higher level programs and stuff like that. What does all that look like?
Yeah, we've got several different programs. We've got for physical fitness and well-being and belief breakthrough. Everything that we do is tied to belief breakthrough, first of all, which is so important for us. That's a key foundation of everything that we do. But we've got we call it our body program, for lack of a better term. It's called our Gladiator program, which is all about belief breakthrough in personal fitness and in eating better and all those different things. And that's one of our higher level programs. We've got our Inner Circle program, which is probably one of our most popular programs, which is a year-long of just really high-level mentorship. It's a lot of group mentorship. A lot of people that have been through our programs now service those programs. I'm part of those programs. Our other, Chris Crone is part of those programs. This is all about just, again, helping people where they are, and primarily with that belief breakthrough as being the main part of that. And then we have our Mentor Maker program. And this is really for an individual who has a message. They've had experiences, and oftentimes for us, some of our deepest, darkest experiences become some of our greatest motivation to help other people overcome. And with our Mentor Maker program, we help you to formulate your signature presentation, help you to understand some of the steps that you can do and things that you can do to create a 6-figure business based around your message and how to become a mentor if that's what you're looking for. But also just how to speak confidently from stage and how to get on stages and different things like that. I mean, it really kind of covers the gamut in building a business around your unique set of gifts, talents, abilities, and your message. And so that's really, and of course, we've got our real estate programs, which are phenomenal, where we do it all for you, or we also have some creative ways of helping you to get in the weeds and do it too.
Wow. So it sounds like you cover the gamut of whatever limiting belief you may have. So
yeah,
that's great.
Yeah, we try.
And it works. It sounds like it works a lot on mentorship. Let's talk a little bit about mentorship and how you feel like that makes a significant difference to success and maybe what you can learn from mentors.
Yeah, absolutely. For me, this goes back into so many different aspects of life. And if you think about mentorship, for some people, mentors or coach is a foreign concept, but let's put it into proper context. Look at the professional sports arena. And I look at, for example, Tiger Woods, and whether you like him or not as a person, that's not part of this conversation, but he was one of the greatest golfers of all time. And it was interesting at his peak, like at his very best, Tiger Woods, I believe, had 6 or 7 different coaches. He had a pitching coach. He had a driving coach. He had a putting coach. He had a swing coach. I mean, I don't know all of them, but he had several. Probably, I think I heard once it was like 6 or 7 different coaches. So if you think about that, here's a man who's top of his game, an expert, in every right in the game of golf, and really the best. Why in the world would he want a coach?
Yeah, it seems like people should be paying him.
Right? You'd think so, but that's one of the amazing things about mentorship is, although your mentor, in some cases, there's a lot of different arguments on mentorship. Some people say get a mentor who's done 10 times what you've done. Some people say get a mentor who's, done 30 times what you've done. I say get a mentor who's a step ahead of you. I say get a mentor who's done something that you want to do. But even sometimes it's good to have a mentor who can just see things that you don't see. And, that's oftentimes the case. Like, again, with Tiger Woods, he had a pitching coach or a putting coach who I could almost guarantee wasn't as good as a putter as Tiger Woods was, but he could see things in blind spots that Tiger Woods couldn't see. He could make adjustments, little slight tweaks that would help him. And that's been my experience with mentorship. I've had the privilege to have many, many mentors in my life. Some I have paid, some I have not. Some of them have been free. But I will tell you that mentorship is invaluable. It's what has gotten me to where I am today. And I am in no stretch of the imagination where I want to be yet. I don't, proclaim to have a perfect life and a perfect marriage with perfect everything. I mean, I've got a wonderful wife and I've got 7 amazing children, and I still struggle with my temper at times. And I still make wrong choices, and I get to learn from those choices. But the mentorship that I've had and especially the one-on-one mentorship that I've had has been such an amazing driving factor in getting me to where I am. And I know for a fact, I can look back, if I hadn't have had those mentors in my life and I had just tried to learn by the school of hard knocks, which, by the way, we're all going to anyway. But if I hadn't had those mentors in my life, I would not be where I am today. And I would not have accomplished the things that I've already accomplished. I just know it for a fact, because what they've been able to do is to point out specific areas and say, hey, why don't instead of stumbling here and having to go through the effort of getting back up, brushing yourself off and working up your momentum again, why don't you just step over that, or jump to the side on this one? And so they've been able to help me navigate through things that I wouldn't have known, or I wouldn't have seen, or because of some of my blind spots would have landed me on my back. And that is, I don't know if I can put a dollar figure to that. I mean, that the value of that is so tremendous, and it's been a huge aspect of who I am.
Yeah. Somebody that will tell you honestly, and somebody that you'll be willing to listen to, right? I mean,
absolutely.
Sometimes your spouse is not the best mentor in some areas.
You know what though? But sometimes they are. Yeah. And sometimes, you opened it up, so I'm just going to real quick. My wife, and she's not listening to this, and I don't know if she will or not, but she gets nervous sometimes when I speak, because sometimes I speak quickly, and anyway, it makes her nervous. But I'll tell you, but my wife has been one of the most amazing mentors for me. And if you can get to the space of allowing yourself to be taught by your spouse, I mean, honestly, and just to talk about this real quick, my wife said something to me years ago that opened my eyes. And if you're married, I just want you to listen close for a second. She said, Stephen, you know that we're on the same team, right? And more so, she even went deeper. She said, when I look at you and I in our relationship, in my mind, we are the same person. And this concept may seem a little strange for some people, but just listen first. Don't shut off yet. She said, I feel like we're the same person, which means when I come to you, if I'm ever coming to you with any criticism, I'm not just criticizing you, I'm criticizing me. And I'm looking at this as, how can I improve myself? Because you're the other half of me. And I'll tell you, that mentorship right there has been life-changing for me, because I'm still not perfect and I still show up weird and sometimes I still get angry. But when I think about that, and if I will approach it that way, whatever the issue is that we're discussing, whatever the problem is that we may be facing, if I can look at her and the situation as though we are the same person, as though what I'm telling her, I'm telling myself, where I'm taking on accountability rather than shoving it off on her. I mean, that's been a game changer for me.
Yeah, there's a scripture that talks about, the virtuous and lovely wife or whatever is, her price is far above rubies. And that's, that can go for spouses regardless. So that is great. And Limitless, in my opinion too, it comes down to a point of actually being honest and authentic with yourself and with others as well, right? That you're willing to look at something and see it for what it really is and not allow it to still be a block for you, correct?
Absolutely. You have to be willing to really get vulnerable. And I'll tell you, not everyone is going to be willing to get vulnerable up on stage and go through a breakthrough in front of everybody. But one of the neatest parts about Limitless that I love is that anybody who comes to any of our events, just by virtue of the fact that they're there, have an opportunity to receive a personal one-on-one breakthrough session with one of our breakthrough experts. And we call those our angels. And so they have an opportunity to sit down and have a real breakthrough session personalized exactly to them. And I'll tell you, that's something that I've never seen any other event or group do. And I think I know why. It's really difficult.
Yeah, I would imagine.
It's hard to orchestrate that, but I'll tell you, we've done it. And it's been an amazing boost for people that come, because I know for a fact that not everyone's going to join our higher level programs. I get it. Most people probably won't. And that's also okay. But I can walk away from our event every single time we hold it, which, by the way, our next one's coming up this week. It's happening soon. But I can walk away from it knowing that everyone there, if they chose into it, had an amazing experience, an amazing and a personal experience. And that to me, again, is super valuable.
Yeah. Wow. Well, let's talk about a little bit about the books that you've read. We talked about when you were 18, you read Think and Grow Rich. Are there other books that you feel like have been really influential in your development?
Absolutely. Actually, two of my favorite books are probably going to be not the run-of-the-mill personal development book per se, but I'm really, I love our country, and I love it even more after reading these two books. And the first one was John Adams by David McCullough. Has become one of my favorite books of all time. Just a tremendous, tremendous read. I actually do a lot of Audible as well, so I listen to a lot of books while I'm driving and different things like that. But John Adams was amazing, and that really in conjunction with 1776, also by David McCullough. Those two books opened my eyes. They opened my view of education. It opened up my view of how we choose what we do in life. John Adams was kind of the unsung hero in my mind. And I remember learning about his name in my American history courses in high school and college, but I don't feel like I ever really learned about him. And, he kind of, I feel like he's kind of sidestepped. We hear about Benjamin Franklin and we hear about George Washington and Thomas Jefferson, but John Adams really was the true champion of liberty because he was living inside of his passion. He loved law, and I don't need to sit here and go through a whole what the books were, but he loved it, and because he loved it so much, he worked tirelessly to learn about it and to become the very best in it. And because of that, we have our country that we have today, and we have liberty, and we're able to vote and express our opinions. Those are things and rights and privileges that we wouldn't have had it not been for, in my mind, John Adams, even more than a lot of others. But anyway, so those books have been tremendous for me in learning about character and in learning about growth, choosing the life that you want, living your passions. Absolutely.
Well, and if I'm correct I haven't read John Adams, but I had a really good friend that did, and we taught an American history class, and she actually taught our students that, he was a very passionate person, but he knew he had because people saw him as kind of like a nutcase in a way.
Yeah.
So he actually would go to friends and he would say, he was humble enough to realize where he had weaknesses and seek the advice that he needed to, and they helped push his message forward, even though, it was a wonderful message, but he just wasn't able to relay it the way that he knew it needed to be relayed. Is that?
Yeah, I think both. I think he was a smart guy in that he definitely surrounded himself with amazing individuals. You look at his peers, and those were all men of high integrity. They were all championing this conversation of liberty. But one thing I also really respect about him is he actually became one of the greatest orators of his day. And he didn't start off that way. He didn't always have those gifts and those talents, but he worked tirelessly. He knew that in order to be a good lawyer, which he loved law more than anything, and he knew that in order to be a good lawyer, he had to be able to speak well. He had to be able to carry a thought. And there's story after story of him on the floor of the Continental Congress, just speaking for hours, very eloquently. He actually had a pretty good command of the language eventually, anyway, not right away, but eventually, which helped his cause. But he was super smart in that he surrounded him with people, and when he didn't possess the ability, or when he didn't have the pull or the influence or the whatever,
he went to
the people that did. Absolutely.
Oh, yeah. Awesome. Well, tell us what habits you feel like have been really helpful in your personal life for success.
Great. I appreciate that. Oftentimes, I believe we tend to push off the things that come hardest to us. And usually it's those things that come hardest to us that will actually stimulate the greatest growth and allow us to get further on faster. But because it's hard, we avoid it, we sidestep. And so one of the biggest things that I would say is one of the most useful things that anybody can do, it's really not hard to do, really, is when you look at your day and you look at what you need to accomplish and you look at what your goals are and everything, do the hardest things first.
Yeah, get it out of the way.
just get it done. If picking up the phone and making a sales call is the hardest thing for you to do, then do it first. So often we go to what's easiest for us. We go to what we like the most. We'll start our day. We'll jump on Facebook and we'll respond to everybody on Facebook first, and then we'll check our emails and respond to our emails. And then we'll create the next email copy that we need to do, and we'll add a little bit to our website, and we'll do some whatever whatever it is, and you'll do all these things that come really, really easy to you and that you may even be good at first, which means that typically the things that were most important get shoved off to the next day.
Yeah.
And then it just keeps perpetuating itself, right?
Yeah.
And so my advice to anybody is do the hard thing first.
Wow. Yeah, I have a habit of doing that. You want
I think everyone does.
Procrastinate as long as you
can. Yeah.
Awesome.
Do the hard thing first, and it's funny how light you feel, and actually how much it improves every other aspect of your life. If you'll do those hard things first of all, you'll start to get better at them and you'll start to enjoy them more. But secondly, when you do go in and now, hit the things that you like, you'll be able to hit it with more energy because you've already accomplished so much. You've already done those things that were difficult for you. And so there's a different energy that really goes into all of it.
Yeah, I was going to say that energy does hang on. The negative energy can really hit any other part of our life. And then we don't even know it. Once again, the limitless beliefs are still there. So tell us, like, as far as long-term goals where do you see yourself, and how do you feel like that's going to work into a legacy that you hope to leave behind?
I appreciate that. I'm working on a book right now. That to me is, most authors will tell you, if they're honest with themselves, that their book was a work of love and primarily for themselves, and if someone else gets a benefit from it, if someone else derives, get some ahas or whatever, then all the better. But really, I think, you're right for yourself or maybe for your loved ones, and then hopefully other people will receive benefit from it. Well, I'm in the same boat. I'm working on a book right now, really all based around this idea of choice and the power behind your choice and overcoming that past that sometimes just holds us captive. And I'm really excited about it because I know that I'm not the first to write a book about this kind of thing, and I'm also not the last. But the things and the aha moments that have been so powerful for me, I feel this urge and desire to share with the world. And I've had opportunities to speak in a lot of different places. I've spoken all across the nation, and I've gone to the Dominican Republic as well, so a little bit out of the country as well. It's just been a tremendous opportunity to share some of my thoughts that I've had, and to see, as I'm talking with people, to see that light bulb turn on, or to see them go through that aha moment of change. And and it's not that I want or need people to come up to me afterwards, but to hear those stories of people when that has happened, when they've come up to me and said, what you said there, just it clicked something in my mind, and that I've never connected the dots in just that way before. I love hearing those stories. I love hearing about those things. And that, to me, that's the legacy that I really care about, is helping as many people as I possibly can to understand that they are powerful, that they have more power than they oftentimes give themselves credit for, that they don't have to be subject to, the world telling them that they're trash or that they're not worth it or whatever, but that they can truly be influencers of good, that they can share their gifts with the world. And although not everyone's going to accept and love and want those gifts, there are a lot of people that will. And that's their tribe, and so that's a legacy that I'm looking to leave. But really also, I mean, my vision and goals of where I want to be 5 years from now or 10 years from now is honestly doing the same thing. I love what I'm doing right now, and it may shift and change a little bit, and some programs may fall and some may be added, but at the end of the day, I really feel fortunate. I really feel blessed, because I feel that for the most part, I'm spending the majority of my time doing things that I love inside of my passions, trying to follow the example of John Adams a bit, and utilize my gifts, my talents, my abilities, my experiences to bless others.
Yeah, that's great. Well, and I think we like to hear, I mean, in your case, of what I was feeling is that I would like to hear how I'm helping other people, because it almost sounds like you're getting them out of prison. You're getting them out of a place where they might feel trapped. And that's really it can be inspiring to you as well. So.
Oh, well said. And absolutely, it is in what I do. There are a lot of opportunities to learn from the experiences of others, because I get an opportunity to listen to a lot of people and hear their backstories, and oftentimes even hear their story right now that they're still living in, and hear how it's affecting them and how they're feeling. And it truly is oftentimes like I'm giving someone a key. And for the first time in their life, they realize that, wow, this key can take off the shackles. It can release the pain. It's a start, at least, to healing a relationship or whatever. And for me, I mean, it's crazy, because anyone that has a message and is sharing it wants to believe that it'll help other people. But the craziest part about it for me is I almost feel like I'm blessed more than they are, probably. I truly feel that I have this amazing opportunity to learn from so many people, and almost take each individual on as we're talking with them, or as I'm mentoring somebody or whatever. I mentor it at the same time, and I get to learn from their experience, and I get to grow, and I get to, have another shortcut for myself in life. And so part of it, as wonderful as it is to give, I feel like I receive so much as well.
Oh, that's great. So I'm looking at the clock going, oh no, I've taken so much of your time. But before we say goodbye, do you have any final parting words for our listeners? And then give us your contact information, how we can get in touch with you and find out more about Limitless.
I appreciate that. Yeah, I mean, I think my parting words would, just to reiterate some of what we've already said, is we all have so many opportunities in life, and every day is truly a new opportunity to decide how you want to show up and how you want to act. And there are so many different circumstances. I mean, we've got people from all walks of life who come from so many different backgrounds, and some people that are struggling with drug addictions, and some people that are struggling with, other addictions. And, maybe there's someone that's going through a divorce right now, and maybe there's somebody who had just had a foreclosure on their home and feels like they're ruined financially, or just went through a bankruptcy. And let me even get a little bit deeper. There may be even people listening on this phone who have been abused verbally, physically, sexually. Whatever it is that you're facing right now in your life, you have the ability and the power to not only overcome and get through it, but to become a better person, to learn from that experience. You have choice in how you deal with this experience. You asked me about books, and I know that we're coming up on the end of time here, but one of the most amazing books that I've had an opportunity to read was a book by Dr. Viktor Frankl, A Man's Search for Meaning. And that book, Viktor Frankl was in a concentration camp. He's a Jewish man who was a psychologist and was put into concentration camp for a long, long space of time during the whole Hitler and everything. And to read of his experiences, this man who was a well-educated man who experienced things in his life that 99.999% of us will never even think to experience, was crazy. And one of his biggest lessons was that no matter what it is that he was going through, he always decided how he would show up. He would always have the choice as to how he would act, what he would say, what he would think. Nobody could take that away from him. They could take away his clothing. They could take away his dignity, maybe. They could take away, they could take everything from him. They could beat him. They could remove food from him. But he recognized this power, which was he had the ability to choose how he felt, how he viewed his circumstance, how he viewed other people. No one could force him into anything else. And that power, if I could impress upon anybody here today, if I could leave you with this, if you could recognize that you have that power within, then all things are possible. It won't necessarily get rid of your suffering immediately. And I understand. I understand that some of us are in things that we get to work through, but it will ease the burden, it will make it lighter, and it will give you the tools that you need to create the life that you do want. I've seen it over and over and over again. These aren't just pretty words that I'm just telling you to, pull the wool over your eyes. These are things that I have seen over and over and over again. I guess really all I would like to do is encourage you to keep moving forward, to keep working on yourself, keep looking inward. And the more you do so, the more power you'll have.
Wow, great. How about your contact information?
Oh, thank you. Anybody can go on my website, StephenMichaelMiller.com. That's Stephen with a PH, so STEPHEN, MichaelMiller.com. Or you can email me, Stephen.Miller@Strongbrook.com. I'd love to answer any emails or get in touch with any of you.
That's great. Again, his contact information is StephenMichaelMiller.com. However, we're going to be sure to link up all that information that we discussed today, including maybe some of the books and different things on our website as well. But thank you so much, Stephen, for coming on and lighting our minds on fire. I so appreciate it.
Absolutely. Rebecca, thank you for having me.
Thank you for listening to The Luminous Mind. To learn more about Stephen Miller, go to our show notes at theluminousmind.net. Be sure to become a subscriber to our free email list and get our new monthly newsletter. Then check out the Services tab to see how we can continue to assist you, our fire starters. Also, to help with production of illuminating content, go to the Sponsor tab at theluminousmind.net for more information on sponsorship and affiliate programs. Like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, Google+, Pinterest, and now Instagram. Get our free audio content by subscribing on YouTube, iTunes, and Stitcher. To help us grow, consider these easy ways. Tell your friends about us, leave us a review, share our content, tell us how we can help you so together we can continue to light minds on fire and change the paradigm of education.